product behave very similarly to the way that bromine is released in the flammability fire retardant mechanism of HBCD. So it has the advantages of being a very high molecular weight product that gives you a very favorable hazard profile while being processable, as well as having the fire safety characteristics that are so critical for its use. Just very quickly, as I mentioned, there are a number of different methodologies for looking at how effective a product is as a flame retardant. These are just two examples of that. One is the German DIN 4102 test, which is a test for flammability of construction materials, and then limiting oxygen index is just another measure that we use more from a fundamental standpoint to look at the flammability of these materials. And this is just showing at two different loading levels, the one on the left being a typical loading level for EPS, while the one on the right being a typical loading level of XPS foam. And the bottom line of these charts is that you have very similar flammability performance of polystyrene foams containing HBCD and this replacement product, so meeting that fire safety requirement. So then, folks, having met the structural requirements and then the fire safety aspects, we can take a look at the hazard profile, which has obviously been a primary driver of the development of an alternative to HBCD. And what this chart shows is actually an excerpt from the recently released draft report from the U.S. EPA's Design for Environment Alternatives Assessment for HBCD, in which basically two alternatives, potential alternatives, were assessed for their human health hazards, aquatic toxicity, and environmental fate. So human health and environmental aspects of that. You can see the arrow pointing to the bromine, butadiene styrene brominated copolymer, and the very favorable low hazard ratings for human health and the environment. And you will see that a very high rating under persistence, and the key here is that it's actually designed for persistence, which also equates to stability in processing and lends to that ability to reprocess the material and have favorable end-of-life characteristics. But obviously, because of the very high molecular weight, low bioaccumulation potential, and thus very favorable human health and aquatic toxicity ratings. And I've got the link on there for anybody that would like to go in and look at the full draft report. Just one other page to look at the assessments. EPA has also recently created what they call ChemView, where you can go in and pull up hazard ratings for a number of different structures. Another potential alternative that wasn't initially considered in the Design for Environment program, but is getting some consideration in the marketplace, is the compound in the middle, tetrabromo bisphenol A, dibromo-propyl ether, which we actually at Great Lakes used to market as a product called PE68. We were, I think, the original producer of that material. And as you can see, it's got a similar hazard profile to the other alternative that was assessed. And you can see the very favorable comparison to the polymeric alternative, our Emerald Innovation 3000. Now, I think getting to really the key question here is the availability, and speaking from the standpoint of Great Lakes Solutions, where we stand and being able to commercialize and offer this product. As I said, it's been several years in the making, but we have completed quite some time ago construction of a commercial production facility, have been offering this product for nearly 1 year in terms of commercial production and sales, with a commercial plant with at least 10,000 metric tons of nameplate capacity. And we are capable of expansion, and as market needs dictate, can expand to meet those needs. We are stocking at all major consuming regions, and currently do have ongoing sales for both EPS and XPS applications in the NAFTA region, Asia Pacific, and in the EU. And as mentioned earlier, and I think you'll hear from other licensees of the product, there will be other producers, and I think this has been a key aspect that's I know our customer base has been considering, is that they would like to see not only one but multiple suppliers of this to ensure a competitive situation as well as reliability of supply. This just shows the areas of commercial significance where chemical inventory registrations are required that have been completed. All of the major regions where HBCD is used in polystyrene foam have been completed, and Israel, the CIS region, and Ukraine, 3 other regions of chemical or of demand for HBCD where the material is also available. And this is just a picture's worth 1,000 words, I guess. So this is just a picture of our actual production facility in Arkansas in the United States. The arrow pointing to basically the production unit for Innovation 3000. And then just to comment on affordability, and I know you're going to be hearing from others that are downstream that can comment on this, but again, the design of the product has been such that no major capital investments are not required to implement this technology. There is some cost to innovation, and is a incremental, at least in the current economics, an incremental cost for implementation that's only a few percent, so very incremental increase to the final cost of the polystyrene foam insulation. Again, multiple licensees will create a competitive activity for the product, and as demand increases, as transitions increase, capacity utilization will increase, and that will further improve the economics of the alternative. So just in conclusion, really kind of the bottom line, the way that we like to say it is that the alternative is an appropriate alternative from a functional standpoint, physical properties, fire safety performance, and environmental and human health considerations. It is available, and availability is increasing and affordable or economically feasible from the standpoint of cost of the finished product. And again, would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Well, thanks very much, Marshall. I think we'll hold questions until to the end, because I'm sure we're going to run out of time, and we wouldn't want to miss out on some presentations that we could otherwise have. So now I'd like to ask the representative from one of the other licensees, Albemarle Corporation, to say a few words on their program for the production of polymeric alternative.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to those who follow us online. My name is Caroline Sussier. I'm the EU Public Affairs Director with Albemarle. I'm based in Louvain-la-Neuve, and I'm very pleased to be there today to share with you the steps that our company has been taken to make sure that the transition from HBCD to a safer alternative will be done in an efficient and smooth way. So as you know, HBCD is one of the first 2 substances still on the market to be identified as a POP under the Stockholm Convention. At the same time, it's also one of the first substances which is going through the authorization process under which at the EU level. So it's for sure an interesting situation, and it's for sure an interesting learning by doing process that we are all in. And not surprisingly, there's been a pressing demand from various stakeholders, both from industry, from regulators, from NGOs, to better understand how we will transition from HBCD to a safe alternative. At Albemarle, we therefore welcome this initiative, which has been taken by the drafter and the former chair of the HBCD contact group, and we would like to thank both of them for having invited us today to share our experience. Albemarle Corporation, as you know, is a leader in the development, manufacturing, and marketing of flame retardants, including HBCD and new generation products. And we want to reaffirm our commitment to support our customers' transition from HBCD to a more sustainable alternative in due course and within the appropriate regulatory framework. So how does this substitution work in practice within our company? You might remember that in April 2012, Albemarle announced a technology license agreement with Dow for a new polymeric flame retardants for use in extruded and expanded polystyrene foam. This year, we are running the sampling campaign of our Green Crest. This is the brand of polymeric flame retardants, of our Green Crest polymeric fire safety solution for commercial qualification in EPS and XPS applications, because you need commercial qualification. And sampling will begin now. So the company expects to commercialize Green Crest in 2015 before the reach sunset date, which, as you know, has been fixed for the 21st August 2015. In addition, in the meantime, Green Crest has already been successfully registered in several countries and regulatory frameworks. Marshall already listed the different frameworks in which their product has been registered. I'm not going to do exactly the same, but as you know, we have, for example, registered the monomers which compose the polymer, in which we have also listed the substance, the polymer, in Canada, Japan, Taiwan, the USA, to name a few. I think it's also important, as Marshall underlined, to recall the fact that as a polymer, Green Crest really represents a more sustainable alternative to HBCD. And this is key, you know. Due to its high molecular weight, it won't be absorbed by the body if ingested. And these characteristics also gives this substance a very favorable ecotoxicology profile. So we are confident that the several steps that we've taken over the last few months will make this transition as effective and smooth as possible. If you have any additional questions more on the technical aspects of this, I would be more than happy to circulate those to my colleagues in the USA to reply to those. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. And now, unfortunately, we don't have a representative of ICLIP, but we do have a statement that they're prepared that we will put on the screen, and my colleague Timo will read to it.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. This is we have received a written update from a producer. Another producer or licensee of the polymeric flame retardant, and we would just like to highlight. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we have received an update from the producer of the third producer of the polymeric flame retardant. We would like to highlight a few things in their very recent update. First of all, this is from ICLIP. Based in Israel, also producing HBCD. And the information that they have given us is that commercial quantities of FR122P are already available at the level of several thousands of metric tons per year. And most importantly, the ICLIP anticipates increasing its production levels of FR122P to a level of over 10,000 metric tons during the second half of 2014. And this information is very important for us because this adds to the overall picture that we have on the availability. But of course, we are talking about the same alternative as has been discussed in the two previous presentations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Timo. So now we'll be able to hear a little bit about a different alternative, and so I invite the representative of Green Chemicals on their alternative.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Ethel Garlacchi. First of all, I would like to thank you for this invitation. This is actually the first time Green Chemicals has the opportunity to introduce its alternative to HBCD, a family of products we call PEM. I also would like to thank our partners, Unibrom, for the support in the supply of the raw materials, and MPI Chemie for the support in the sales. Today, I will briefly introduce our company. I will let you understand how we approach the HBCD replacement and how we got to a solution. I will give you some information concerning the regulatory aspects and also the intellectual property. And then my colleague will also give you some information considering the availability and the possible end of life of the product. She will focus attention to the positive and negative aspects of our solution, and she will also make you understand how we found a solution to the negative aspects. She will conclude giving you some information comes from the commercial experience. Green Chemicals is a small Italian company, and it was established in 2010. We deal with the plastic additives, in particular power blends, compacted and master batch. And our main business is XPS. Everybody here knows that since 2008, HBCD was included in the SGHC substances list, and it was declared a PBT product. And we know that there is a proposal to ban it in August 2015. This is why we understood that we had to find a solution, an alternative to this HBCD. Just to let you understand how we approached the problem, we knew that we had to find a fire performance solution. The solution had to be more sustainable than HBCD and, of course, REACH compliant. We needed something that was thermostable in order to have good processability and also a reuse of the final product. And we needed something compatible with the base systems, the base polymer systems, in particular polystyrene. We looked at the existing technology because we wanted an immediate available product and, of course, a cost-effective solution. Just to let you understand, I would like you to look at these two chemical structures. Our study began with the comparison between polystyrene and polypropylene. You can see these two polymers are very similar, and when we have to overcome mild tests like the V2 for the polypropylene and the Euroclass E for the polystyrene, the flame retardancy is obtained through a dripping mechanism. You look here in the left, a classic formulation used in the polystyrene foams. It is composed of HBCD with a synergist, the bicumene, and a heat stabilizer. In the polypropylene, you can find DDP, that is tetrabromobisphenol A bis-dibromopropilenator, together with bicumene and antimony trioxide. These two are brominated compounds, and these are very good initiators because the bromine is bonded to a secondary carbon. Actually, what happened is that the aliphatic of the brominated radicals in the melt will cause this dripping, this polymer breakdown. The material drifts away and it takes the heat away from the flame front. If you look at these two molecules, you will see that the active sites in the HBCD are much more than the BDDP. This just to let you understand why HBCD is so active in the polystyrene. You should imagine these polymers like a long chain, and the radicals will cut this chain into smaller pieces, causing the breaking that we observe. So we started our study with a comparison between polystyrene and polypropylene, and we effectuated some lab tests, some B2 tests. We took the existing technology that was in the polypropylene and we put it in the polystyrene. We looked at many different molecules, but at the end we found that BDDP was the most suitable solution according to different aspects, the commercial and the technical ones. And what we found was that the removal of the antimony trioxide gave us the opportunity to pass the test with very low dosage of the dominated molecule. One another point that we found, it was that the optimization of the ratio between BDDP and dicumin was very important. Actually, we understood that the synergistic effect between the BDDP and its synergist, the dicumin, was obtained only with the specific range of values. In particular, you can see here that when we work with a percentage of dicumin between 6 and 9% on the total amount of the flame retardant, we have the best extinguishing times, with only a total amount of flame retardant between 0.9 and 1.7%. This is just to show you all the tests that they've done to arrive to this ratio and to develop our solution. Under the regulatory aspect, I would like you to look at this table. Our formulation is composed on BDDP and dicumin. BDDP is not classified. It was registered in 2013. It is REACH compliant, ROS compliant, and it is not SDHC substance. Dicumin is as well REACH compliant and ROS compliant. It is not SDHC substance. It was registered. It is considered skin sensitive category 1. Under the intellectual property, I can say that GCSAM is patent pending in Europe, and now we are waiting for the grant. So, we first studied the solution. We found we made some lab tests and we obtained the formulation. We had now to pass to industrial scale product. Just to let you understand, I would like you to point attention to these two technologies. In EPS, you work with the styrene and you have to make a polymerization. And in this technology, you put additives under powder form. On the other side, when you have to work with polystyrene, you will obtain XPS and the additives are put in master batch form. In this technology, the temperature that we reach is above 220 degrees. So we needed to create a master batch. This table resumes all the negative and positive aspects that we found in our solution. In green you will find the positive ones, and in the red the negative ones. All these aspects will be now deepened by my colleague, one by one. Thank you.
Thanks, I'm Michaela Lorenzi, and I'm going ahead with the presentation that Ethel has shown to you. So I will go quickly one by one to see positive aspects of BDDP plus dicumin formulation and how we try to manage negative aspects, because there are negative aspects on BDDP, to make it working for the XPS application. So Ethel has already talked to you about regulatory, and now I would like to point on the thermal stability. One very good point of BDDP is thermal stability. Everybody of us knows how HBCD is sensitive to temperature. We know that when HBCD goes to 180, 190 degrees, it starts losing bromine and you get bromidric acid, and so corrosion and problems on the surface of the board is coming. So HBCD needs to be stabilized very well, but this is not the case for BDDP because it's really stable and it does not need any heat stabilization during the XPS process. So we try to make this the first good point of this solution. The second aspect, which is not exactly better than HBCD, it is the price. The price is pretty stable, fluctuating mainly due to the bromine fluctuation, while HBCD is showing us very fluctuating, and last year was even coming to 30% price increase. So we think that stability in price could be a better point on BDDP. Another point we are analyzing on BDDP, always considering its thermal stability, is the end product second life. Coming to the polypropylene technology, V2, we know that polypropylene plus BDDP, decumin, and antimony trioxide was the old technology for making kitchen suits, particulars, application, and pipes. And we know that it can be recycled to produce flooring or concrete littering or carpet. In our short experience, because we have just a few months experience on the commercial scale for BDDP in polystyrene, we think that BDDP can be also can allow polystyrene to be reprocessed. So we can imagine that polystyrene board can be grinded and then reused again, maybe in a polystyrene board or in a pallet or simply in a granular form and then molded in other application. This is always due to the thermal stability BDDP is showing to us. And we have started a study to understand better how polystyrene plus BDDP and decumin can be reprocessed. Availability, okay, DG-SAM is made with well-known and worldwide commodities raw materials, so we have several production sites in China. In addition, since these products are coming from polypropylene technology, for polypropylene technology, B2 application, the market is going towards already available allergen-free solution or extremely low bromine solution. So actually, BDDP is available in existing plants. So I think it's a good point. So the product is available and on a commercial scale. Now we come to the bad point of BDDP. One is the low melting point. BDDP is melting at 110 degrees, and when it's mixed together with decumin, it's even lower. We go to 70 degrees low melting point. And as Ethel has told you, to bring the product inside the XPS board, we need to produce a master batch. So to mix the powder with polystyrene carrier. We could make it by adding talc. And so we made MBPS SAM 54 and 55, depending from the ratio between BDDP and decumin. Only adding some talc. But this was creating problems in some XPS producers because talc is also a creating agent. So when we were overcoming a certain point, then the foam was collapsing and it was not possible to use this product. So we came to MBPS SAM 54 or 55, where we were substituting polystyrene with the lower melting point LDPE or EVA. These two polymers, due to the lower melting point, can be worked together with BDDP and decumin without the need of talc. So this is by far the products with which we got more homologations in the market. Now, the activity. BDDP, as Ethel has shown you, we can consider having half activity than HBCD. So the point for increasing its activity in the XPS applications, and considering that in XPS almost the market is using a 50% active HBCD master batch, was trying to concentrate as much as possible BDDP in a granular form. So the first experience we had, it was just it was obtained compacting BDDP and decumin together obtaining, I show a small picture, a granular, but still most of XPS producers cannot use it because still we have presence of fines, which is creating problems during the feeding system. So we came to a brand new technology, which we call drops, and we have obtained it using the low melting point of BDDP and dicumin. So we put BDDP, dicumin in PE rocks. We melted everything together and making them dripping and cooling down the droplets we obtain. So it's treated like a master batch. You can see completely dust-free, but we can arrive till 85% active BDDP and dicumin. Considering these two solutions, we can replace one by one the 50% HBCD active master batch, obviously stabilized and with synergies inside. So now we came to the commercial aspect. We got approval in 13 different XPS producers, which prefer not to name for not disclosing know-how in Europe mainly. And so the test we have to pass was Euroclass E or B1 and B2 test. We started sampling MBPS Sound 54, and as I told you before, only 2 could go ahead working with this product because the others got nucleating problems during the production. And so most of them passed to MBPS Sound 55, the one with LDP and DVA carrier, and somebody with drops and compacted version. XPS board is keeping the same mechanical characteristic than a board with HBCD. We can notice a processing aid effect, which allow to lower temperature of the process and maybe helping when CO2 technology is used for producing XPS. And we have noticed a better performance of our solution when as higher as the thickness of the board, probably because the processing aid quality and better compatibility with polystyrene than HBCD. Concerning loading level, we talk about a product which is not as active as HBCD, so we go from the same amount when XPS producer is able to use a highly concentrated version towards 50%, and this is heavily dependent on the thickness of the board. So, I can name our regular customers. I would like to underline Selip in Germany. They are our regular customers since 2.5 years, and they already obtained the IBT certification. So we would like to underline the fact that SAM 54 and 55 is a cost-effective solution for the XPS application. I would like to thank our production partners, 3M.com, Viva, and Guzzetti for the master batch production, Amedeo Brasca for drops, and Sato Europa for compacting powder. Conclusion, BDDP dicumin could be a transition replacement for HBCD, so good enough fire performance, better for the environment and health profile than HBCD. Improved properties for the second life of the end product, compatible, cost competitive, available, and stable. Formulation is already available, but we don't consider BDDP as the solution. It's a transition, definitely a transition product, because our aim is catching an allergen-free solution. Thank you. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay. Thanks, Timo and Peter and everybody for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was certainly very interesting presentation with a lot of nice technical material in it, which is the meat and drink of our committee. But now we will pass over to the experiences of essentially the users, the producers of EPS and XPS, and first we'll hear from Stephen Long of Ineos Styrenics. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Timo, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. A few of you may realise I've spoken before at UNEP meetings. I normally speak on behalf of the industry for the polystyrene foams. Today, as you see, I have my company name down here. So what I want to share with you is some perspectives from our own company, end user downstream of HBCD, because I think there's some important things here to share. So let's have a look at what hasn't changed since the decision in May, 5 months ago. Well, I think I can speak on behalf of the European industry to say that the supply chain still recognises the need for exemptions and accept the resolution from the 9th of May to list HBCD as a POP material. However, there is concern over the timing and the implementation of no recycling. If we look at the earliest this resolution can become implemented, we're talking only a year, and to change an industry in a year is a very quick timescale, and it seems unrealistic to us. We still talk through these issues with regulators, with legislators, both locally in European countries and at European level. It's important to have this dialogue to see what the best way forward is. And clearly we're working with our downstream, so converters, and with the end users of the products, the foam products, to enable a smooth transition without disruption in our industry. And it's important to note here that from our perspective, there is no new long-term sustainable alternative for HBCD other than those that have already been identified. And so if we're looking for new materials, it will take time, as we've, I think, just heard very eloquently from Green Chemicals. But what has changed since COP6? Well, I think we've also heard that there are the first commercial sales now of EPS and polystyrene foams containing polymeric flame retardant as an alternative to HBCD. However, in this very difficult economic climate we're facing, especially in the building construction industry, there has been a pushback of the additional cost, whether it's from the converter's point of view or from downstream. Even what we heard as a few percent can make a significant difference in industries and companies that are break-even point. There's been considerable discussion as to how we meet the identification requirements. We can come back to that. This is almost a topic of its own right, and I think with the time limitations I'll move on now by saying I'm happy to talk about that later. And there is growing concern about this impact on the existing EPS recycling industry. There are companies today who are involved in recycling foams from the building industry containing HBCD. It is a specialised industry, so what happens to these foams, these companies? It has a direct economic impact on these companies. If we look specifically at the alternative HBCD timelines, well, we've heard that, and we know from the a very detailed European study over 9 years, looking at all potential alternatives, that the polymeric flame retardant has been identified as the preferred long-term sustainable alternative to HBCD. And as I mentioned, this is the only viable alternative that we have found to date. 3 companies we've already heard from are known to have taken out licenses from Dow Chemical to manufacture this product. All 3 have announced new capacity within the timelines by 2015 to give roughly 30,000 tonnes globally. This, as we've seen from the current demand of HBCD, will be insufficient to meet the global demand, especially if you look at the requirements for higher loading of this product against HBCD. We can just recap quickly. Chemtura has 1 plant up and running with a 10 KT nameplate capacity. ICL has a small plant in the Netherlands, which is currently used mostly for sampling with some small commercial sales, and they're looking to build a new capacity in Israel. And Albemarle, again as we've heard, are at the pilot stage. The reality of the situation is it would be great if all this capacity came on stream at the time stated. But as we already know, any large engineering project can take time and can run behind schedule. And if you look back at the announcements from Chemtura, we can see for them to get to their initial announcement of this new technology, it took an extra 15 to 18 months. So we have to be aware of this when we're looking at the impact on the industry of availability of these products. However, supply is not the only bottleneck. Once these new plants coming on stream have capacity and it's consistent commercial quality, then the downstream, so users like ourselves making EPS foams or EPS raw material for foams, can finalize our production. Sure, we're going to engage and work with these companies to test their pilot products, their early products, but until you have that final product coming out of the commercial plant, you cannot be 100% sure that it is of the same quality and gives the same attributes. So it's important to wait for that final product. And this is a work between each of the three suppliers today, or any other suppliers who come to the market, and each of their customers. Unfortunately, it's not a drop-in replacement, and each production facility for EPS and also for XPS are different, and they all have their quirks. And again, I think we saw this quite eloquently from the green chemicals. Look at their customers, not all were able to use their alternative. And it'll be the same here, but some customers will have more trouble than others in applying the polymeric from the different suppliers into their production. At the same time, we have an ongoing business. I mentioned it's a very difficult business at the current time. The construction industry in Europe is very, very difficult. And so we need to accommodate this extra work and pilot trials, which can only be carried out on the large plants eventually, with our ongoing business. If there are no issues, and we have a good product coming out, and we can test it and get successful results, we're talking maybe about a 3 to 6 month time frame from getting that product from a commercial plant to our customers. However, if there are issues, then this can take considerably longer. It becomes an iterative process between ourselves and our suppliers. If we look further downstream, we have a similar picture. Once we have a product that we're happy with, then we can start sampling our customers. And they have to test it themselves to make sure it works in their process, gives the properties they require, and they have no issues. And again, this takes some time. And if there are issues, it takes longer. If we look specifically at certification, which is a national requirement in many countries, then you have to convince the authorities in each country that your new product meets the requirements for that application. We carried out as an industry a very successful program in Germany, which has identified the polymeric flame retardant as a suitable alternative to HBCD, but this program took over 2 years. Hopefully, it will be suitable for other countries in Europe, but there's no guarantee of this yet. So we might have to look at other certification in other countries and other testing programs, which will take longer time. And as we do these testing, there are only a certain number of certified testing institutes in each country. And as we've seen again in Germany, as we look at fire testing, for instance, today the time delay from submitting a sample to getting a result can be anything between 6 to 9 months. So you have an extra delay built in just to do the testing for these new products. And obviously the final foam can only be used in the market once all this testing and certification has been carried out. So the result of all of this is a subjective assessment. And if I look around my colleagues in the room here, I know that some of my colleagues might have different assessments. But this is the view that we take as a company, and I can also say that the HBCD Authorization Consortium in Europe take a similar view. And this Authorization Consortium represents the majority of EPS production in Europe. So what we see here are 3 producers, each one of which say they can supply about a third of the market. But the time for each of these suppliers coming on stream is different. So we look first of all here at Chemtura, plant up and running, coming on stream, able to meet a timeline by the end of 2014. Albemarle and ICL would have differing timelines. So what we believe is that the realistic phase-in, smooth transition, so as not to disrupt the industry, is going to take us through the exemption period. What about other alternatives? Well, I don't need to speak in any detail about these, but to say we will need a similar testing. And whether it's a product from Green Chemicals or any other product, we have to go through a testing program. And the bottom line of this is at best, any new product, even if it's commercially available today, can take 18 months to 4 years before we can really get that into the marketplace and operation. So, as a summary, the European industry certainly believes that we can convert away from HBCD, given a 5-year exemption period, and product availability. And I say that because we're talking about global supply. So we're fighting for that capacity on a global level. And if we don't get the capacity, then some of our industry is going to suffer. We've seen that if the global polystyrene industry depends just upon the polymeric, there will be insufficient material. So we do need either more announcements of polymeric capacity, or we need other alternatives coming on stream. To date, as I say, we've not identified another long-term sustainable alternative, so we have to start, after this very long program that the European industry has been through to identify the polymeric, we have to see there's something new out there that we can work with. And we get on to the question of identification again. You know, we have to work out for the industry, whether it's local, in Europe or global, how best to identify HBCD in foams, because there is transference of materials from one geography to another, so this becomes not just a European issue, but I think also a global issue. And looking at the existing recycling industry, there remains to be concern in Europe as to how the impact of this legislation, certainly in the short term, is going to affect that existing recycling industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Certainly a lot of food for thought there. So we'll now hear from Marco ten Broegengat from Dow. And Marco, if you could be as quick as possible, please. I will. Not much more than 5 minutes, because no worries. We're running out of time.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marco ten Broegengat. I'm here representing Dow Building Solutions as the General Manager for Europe. I want to explain to you in a very brief moment how we've actually gone on our path to formulate away from HBCD to a new fire retardant. And fire retardants and the use of polystyrene is extremely important for Dow Chemical. Dow Chemical invented extruded polystyrene in the 40s and built a global business around that, which today employs 1,000 people. 20 manufacturing sites, of which half roughly in the European Union. As such, for us, this is an extremely important momentum we're heading towards, and we need to make sure we're doing it right. And I would like to show you that we are actually doing it right, and we feel very comfortable about the change going forward. Now, first of all, I would like to tell you the actual time it took before we actually, and the rigor and the resource we employed as an industry association for XPS to find an alternative suitable candidate for HBCD. And this candidate needed to fulfill 2 requirements, which is basically the requirement of a better health, safety and environmental profile, and secondly, it still needed to meet all the physical properties of an XPS foam to still fit with the product regulations which are out there in Europe. Now, what we noticed is that in the stage 1 in 2002, and bear in mind this started in 2003 already, we tested all available candidates and nothing really positive jumped out which we felt we could use going forward. Now, as a result, we actually got in contact with an industry association with the flame retardant industry and started to screen also for more near commercial or novel fire retardants, and started to do all sorts of tests for that to try and see whether these type of products could actually bring us onto a track going forward. And this has been pretty much from 2006 up into 2011. So again, you're talking about a time span of almost 8 years of rigor, investment, and resource. So just to put things into perspective, how long it takes. Now, for Dow, as said before, with a global business employing 1,000 people, we don't want to take any shortcuts, we don't want to take any risks. We wanted to make sure that there was a suitable candidate out there which could also fulfill its need for the next decades, as HBCD had done, but then with a better health, safety, and environmental profile. So we deployed our own R&D resources to go out and also come parallel to what the FR industry was doing with alternatives for the polystyrene industry. And we did come up with an alternative, which is the polymeric flame retardant, a large molecule-based alternative. We actually done an enormous amount of testing with that, and again, if you go back in time, this was something in the 2004 time frame when Dow started to really zoom in and focus on that flame retardant. Since then, significant amount of resources have been deployed to get to the stage where we are today. So to think that something can be introduced relatively quickly needs to be taken with a pinch of salt as well. The EPA report has just been released. It's clear that that also confirmed a superior environmental health profile for the polymeric flame retardant. As a result, Dow Chemical, as a downstream user of FRs, is started to convert its XPS lines to the new flame retardant. We started in Japan this quarter. We hope to finalize that by the end of the month, whereby our Japanese lines will all be running on the new polymeric flame retardant. The next one on the list is the European lines, and we will convert all our European lines to the polymeric flame retardant. We do need, given the amount of resources and to ensure that we do a smooth transfer, we need the time to be able to do that. Also to ensure that ultimately we bring a product to market which still meets all the product and legal regulations around it. What I would like to say, though, is that we're committed as a producer of XPS foam to convert to the new polymeric flame retardant. We're committed to do that by the deadline set by the European Union under REACH for August 2015. We feel that's realistic. We feel we can achieve that given the time which has been given to us in the industry. And that's something we feel very strongly about. Now, I would like to make one more comment, if allowed. I'm speaking on behalf of Dow Chemical as a downstream user. However, I've been asked by my colleague Mark Weidman, president of Dow Global Technology and Licenses, to refer back to a press release which has been sent out by Dow Chemical on the 5th of June, in which we confirmed the availability of the polymeric flame retardant, the actual conversion plans, and the short of the whole press release is that there is enough global demand or supply available for the global demand. And I hear a lot of times to talk about there is not enough supply available to cover global demand. That's correct if you need it all today, but you guys don't need it all today. There is going to be a phase out per region, and based upon that, we've actually, as Dow Chemical, from a licensing point of view, also licensed the capacity, and that's why Chemtura is now online. ICL is following mid-2014, and Albemarle is the next one on top to make sure that the global supply is available to ensure a smooth transition regionally towards the polymeric FR. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thanks very much, Marco. That was great. So quickly moving on, we'll now hear from Giorgio Greenway from BASF.
Yeah.
Thank you, Giorgio.
Okay.
That will be very quick.
Do you want to make it nice and short then? The message that we would like to leave with you is, first of all, my name is Giorgio Greenway. I am Senior Vice President at BASF, which is a very large chemical company, and we produce EPS and XPS. We supply these products globally, and I'm responsible for these products. Now, we wholeheartedly support the transition away from HBCD and have worked on this for many, many years. The simple message we have for you right now is that from a chemical point of view, we can transition immediately. From a chemical point of view. It's not easy, it involves a lot of expense, but we can transition immediately with the substances that we've been supplied with right now. What we are a bit worried about is availability. For the European market, from the announcements that have been made and the investments that have been made, we can produce by the sunset date that have been set by the European Chemical Agency. So we can do it by August 2015. On a global level, maybe it's a different issue. It depends very much on further investments, but as we just heard, it depends on a phased increase of production and a phased introduction of these products into the market. Basically, I think that is it. Thank you very much. And we're not part of the consortium, by the way, just to make sure that I speak for BSF, not for a consortium or an industry, but just for our company. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giorgio. That was very good as well, but nice and informative and short and punchy. So now we have Mr. Martin Cebulski from Synthos in Czechoslovakia.
From Poland. Yeah. So I'm Martin Cebulski. I'm representing the Synthos company. We are located in. We are located in central of the Europe, in Poland and in Czech Republic. We have 2 factories there. And we are also producing both products, so EPS and XPS materials, in Poland and in Czech Republic as well. So we are also producing some other products like synthetic rubbers and dispersion, but today we will focus mainly on the polystyrene product. We are a company with big history. We start from 1945, and we are developing very fast within last few years. As I mentioned before, we have 3 core business. It's the synthetic rubbers for the tire industry. We are the styrene plastic producer, and we are producing EPS for the thermal insulation. We are producing XPS also for the thermal insulation as a final product. And we produce also GPPS and high impact polystyrene for the packaging industry. And the last thing are the dispersion adhesives and latex. So we will be focused on the styrene part of our business. This is our financial data. So we are, as I mentioned, we are growing fast each year. We are putting plenty of money to the investment to the development of the product. And now we can look at our selecting of alternative flame retardant. So we start in 2003 with a plastic Europe program to identify the alternative to HBCD. We have made plenty of our own research on this field within the last year, and we identify few substances which can be used as an alternative to HBCD. And we test this material from different suppliers just to be sure that the material are comparable and we can use it in our production. We spent over 5.7 million euro for development of these materials, just for trials and testing. And for us, the most important thing during the selection was first functionality, because we have to divide the EPS from the XPS production. So the most important, for XPS, it is not so problematic to translate from HBCD into the new flame retardant, for example, polymer, because it's a simple extrusion. But if you are talking about the EPS, it is more complicated because you have to pass the polymerization process. So you have to you have to make it chemical reaction, chemical polymerization, and each material can influence your final product. So for us, the most important thing was the functionality, like polymerization. The next issue is flammability test, processing of this material on our customers, so our customers should have the possibility to process this material, and the final properties of the foam, so this insulation material. The next issue is environmental health and safety profile, which is also very important for us to choose the better option than HBCD, not the worst one. Next issue is economic factor, and of course we have to be secure with a supply, with a proper amount of supply. So at this stage, in our opinion, the most promising alternative now is this dominated dominated polymer product, which is proposed by these three manufacturers like Chemtura, Albemarle, and ICL, which are based on the Dow chemical technology. Our assessment process for the alternative has few steps. So we have to start in the R&D laboratories on the small reactors. Then we are going through the semi-technical line, and the last step is full production scale. So the process of testing is very long to find a good substance which will work in our product. And the performance factor which was considered by us as I mentioned, polymerization stability, the processing of the material in our internal lab, and during the customer test. And of course the issue of fire performance, so we have to comply the European standard, and we are test on also additionally the German standard for the flammability. Of course, other properties of the foam have to be fulfilled. So the thermal properties of the foam, because it's an insulation material, and the mechanical properties as well. So we see today that we are in halfway to really find a solution for implementation of new flame retardant, because we see that the problem which has to be solved are the first stable quality, because we noticed during the plenty of tests that even if we have a production sample from one supplier, because only one supplier is now able to bring us alternatives, and even from this supplier the quality of the material is changing, and some of the samples are okay, some not. And this really can influence our further production. So we are generally not sure what will be the sample from the other two, so from Albemarle and from ICL, because as you see, they generally start sampling the material. So it is not a material from regular production. They are only sample. So this is our awareness that the sample will not be okay, and we noticed that from one of this producer we just received the sample 1 month ago, and the sample is not working properly. So our product can use the sample. So they have to work over. So they have to find another solution for our business. So as I mentioned, for the XPS it is more or less easy to change into the PFR, but for the EPS, it really, as it's here, even small change in the recipe of the PFR can influence the final properties of our foam, so of the EPS which we are producing. As I mentioned, we found a big difference in performance among individual suppliers. And some of these products, which are available now as a sample, are not viable for our EPS production. So at this stage, we have already implemented the PFR to one of our products. It is based on the Chemtura material, because this is the only material which is now available on the market. And we are sure that we can use this flame retardant in our production. The next issue is the availability of alternatives, which we found that is not will not have the possibility to replace all the HBCD till 2015, as Steven mentioned, because if Albemarle and ICL will start in 2014 or 2015, like Albemarle, we will not have the time to check the material, to really be sure that this sample, this material is viable for our production. So this is our main concern. Of course, we want also to test the other solution, not only this PFR product, but it will, of course, along this process much, because they are in a very early stage of the testing. The next issue is the commercialization of this EPS, which contain this PFR. So we found, because now the market is very strong, they're very weak in Europe. So there is a strong resistance on the European market to increase the price and to just implement this new, more expensive flame retardant to the product. We need to obtain some certification for EPS construction application on some markets, like in Poland, in Germany, and in others. So this is the work which has to be done by our customer, because we are producing only the beads, and our customer has to obtain certificates using this new flame retardant. So that's why we need more time to make this process together with them. And the last issue is that the PFR is still more expensive, so it will influence our business. And the summary is our best is to make sure that till 2019 we will be ready to replace the HBCD into the polymeric flame retardant. And we hope that it will be available in sufficient supply till this time. So the sample will be tested, the production will be run. I'm talking about the Albemarle, Ventura, and ICL. So there will be not a sampling; it will be real products from a real production site. So it will give them the time to also build this production site. So that's why at Synthes we asked ECHA for authorization for continued use of HBCD by 2019, because then we will see the chance to really transit from HBCD into the polymeric one. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Marcin. And now we'll have our last presentation from industry user, and this is from Isochemicals here in Italy, and we'll hear from Alessia Spalabero. I hope I pronounced that all right.
Just a short notice before that, the plenary is informed that the Ethiopia room, the event is still going on, although Ryan informed has announced that 2:15 we have to start. So we have another 10 more minutes for the event, and then we take 5 minutes to walk to the green room. Good morning, I'm Alessia Spaliviero of Isochemicals, and I'm here to present our polymeric flame retardant master batch for XPS. After a short introduction to Isochemicals, first I will talk about the characteristics of Aperos master batch. Aperos master batch is our replacement of HBCD master batch, and then I will compare the Aperos foam versus HBCD foam. Isochemicals is a company of Stockman Group. Stockman Group is in the plastic market for 40 years, and it founded Isochemicals in 2007 for the XPS market. Now, at present, we are a global player for expandable polymers, and we have the 15% market share of European XPS additive market. About XPS, we know, and I think you know, that it is a complicated process. There is the raw materials, polystyrene, additives, and there is the blowing agent, and especially the technology is very complicated. And so in isochemicals, we like comparing XPS process to a complicated clock mechanism, and consider HBCD part of this mechanism, like this wheel. And so I have a question for you. Would you like to replace this wheel with whichever wheel? I'm sure you wouldn't. And this is the reason why 2 years ago we started a collaboration with Great Lakes for the development of master batch HBCD-free with Emerald Innovation 2000. The name of master batch is Aperos. And what is Aperos? Aperos is a master batch 50% active. The active is constituted of Emerald Innovation 3000. Inside the master batch there is the synergist, and inside there is a strong thermal stabilizers package. And it is you can use this master batch in your XPS process. After the characteristics of Aperos, I wanted to compare a foam with Aperos, with the performance of foam with Aperos, to a foam with HBCD. This result comes from tests in industrial plant. The thickness of foam is 100 millimeters, and we use the same amount of Aperos and the same amount of HBCD master batch. And in the formulation of this foam, there is a part of recycled materials, because a lot of customers in the formulation of the foam use recycled materials, and so all in the recycled materials there is only Aperos, and so performance is from Aperos. And you can see that the most important parameters like density, like lambda, like flammability are the same. The difference is very slightly. And so in conclusion, I want to tell you that Aperos has the same flammability performance to a master batch HBCD based, and the Aperos foam has the same characteristics of HBCD foam. And Aperos, you can use it in your XPS existing process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessia. Yes, unfortunately we're pretty much run out of time, so we do have two more presentations, although they were just going to be shown by us because the speakers are not here in person. That's one from the Kaneka Corporation in Japan, and one from the NALF Corporation in Germany. So those, and also press release from the Flint Hills Company in the USA. So all of those materials will be made available with the rest of the webinar materials on the website. We've also run out of time, unfortunately, to hear from our regulatory colleagues, but because they will be here during the week, we may hear from them at a separate time. So we're going to hear from the EU, Canada, and Japan. So just in the last few minutes that we have, we might just take a couple of questions. If any people have questions to ask, probably not of us, of course, but of each other, really, I think. So Christine from Dow has got it.
Thanks, Peter. Just a quick question about the other materials from the EU and Canada, etc. Are they going to be made available on the websites as well? That was really...
Yes, they will, yeah. They have both produced presentations, so I'm feeling very guilty that we have not time to hear from them. questions. Certainly I'm a little bit surprised that there are no questions, because we have heard an awful lot of information that we probably would have liked to have heard when we were still doing the POPRC consideration. We've heard a lot more about alternatives today, I think, than we heard in probably the last 2 years of POPRC reviewing. And obviously we heard today some information that, well, it's not necessarily conflicting. There's obviously different parties have slightly different views of when things are available and whether things will work and so on. So it was all quite interesting information. So I'm sure the society event probably has achieved its purpose, and that is really to get the information out to other parties, other countries, to help them influence what they are going to do with regard to the listing of HBCD under the Stockholm Convention. So thank you very much for your attendance and your participation, and especially for those that have travelled a long way just to be here for this event. And finally, I will have to thank my colleague for organising the government of Finland to pay for the lunch, even though we're still wondering where the very large lake of orange juice that we ordered disappeared to. Thank you very much.
Conference.